Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, here to talk about this weekend's IBF lightweight championship bout between champion Miguel Vazquez and challenger, unbeaten challenger, 25-0 with 17 KOs challenger Leonardo Zappavigna, which is taking place and is a must-watch fight. Before I continue, let me just say, just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. The opinion you should follow should be your own. Now, in boxing, in the lightweight division, you have some big names. Juan Manuel Marquez comes to mind. The Ghost, Robert Guerrero, Michael Casitas, Brandon Rios. I'm just here to tell you that included in those names should be Miguel Vazquez. My prediction on this fight, as a fan, I'm leaning toward Miguel Vazquez to successfully defend his title. And I'm expecting him to do it in the later rounds, either by decision or by late stoppage. As a gambler, the recommended play, as I see it, is Zappavigna by KO. I'm talking about the opponent, the unbeaten opponent. Take him by KO, straddled against the over in the fight. In other words, I feel it's either going to be a KO or Miguel Vazquez does what I think he's going to do and wins this fight late. Let's talk about the fight. Let me just say, I consider one of the best technicians in the entire sport to be Bernard Hopkins. But when you look at Bernard Hopkins, even when he was younger, he never really had blinding hand speed. He never had one-punch knockout power. He didn't have blinding foot speed. He was never the athlete that Roy Jones was in his prime. But what Bernard Hopkins was a technician, a guy who understood how to box, understood how to fight, understood how to take his opponent out of his comfort zone, someone who was mentally tough enough to get knocked down twice in a fight against Segundo Mercado in Ecuador, right? You're talking about a fight he had outside the country. He got off the canvas, dusted himself off, got a draw in the fight, and then was able to, of course, go on to great things, right? Someone tough enough to lose to Roy Jones and then retool his career and become one of the dominant middleweight champions in history. When you talk about dominant middleweight champions, there are some names that just pop out. Carlos Monzon, Marvelous Marvin Hagler, Bernard Hopkins belongs in that list. The reason I'm talking about Bernard Hopkins is I believe that Miguel Vazquez is Bernard Hopkins masquerading as a lightweight. Vazquez, when you watch him, he doesn't, have the best hand speed. He doesn't have one-punch punching power. He doesn't have the best foot speed. When you look at him, he doesn't pop out at you as an elite talent. But then when you watch his fights, when you see him get off the canvas in the first round against the then unbeaten Breedis Prescott and then proceed to win every other round of that fight. And let me point out, I understand the scoring was much closer. I understand the scoring had it a split decision that Vazquez won. I'm just here to tell you that was absolutely no split decision. That scoring was as much of a mockery, in my opinion, as the scoring in the first Paul Williams-Sergio Martinez fight. Vazquez dominated Breedis Prescott. Trust me, most people looking at that fight thought that Prescott, who had knocked out Amir Khan, was going to take that fight. let me point out that, of course, Vazquez then fights Ji-hoon Kim, who actually is a bright up-and-coming fighter. I had Kim on my radar, and of course, Vazquez in that fight was equally dominant, winning almost every round in that fight. Again, completely diffusing a guy with tremendous punching power. Understand, Prescott and Kim are two of the biggest hitters at 135, and Vazquez, just like Hopkins does when he faces explosive punchers, somehow found a way to make both of these punchers look very amateurish. Vazquez, if you're looking for undervalued elite fighters, is someone you need to know about. He is justifiably the IBF lightweight champion. He has only lost, I know he has 3 losses. Understand, he's only lost to 2 men. And those 2 men are Saul Alvarez, his first fight. He actually fought Saul Alvarez, who already had 2 fights under his belt. And of course, he actually went the distance. Since it was his first fight, the distance was only 4 rounds. He actually went the distance with Saul Alvarez. The fight was so close, years later, they had a rematch. This time, he went 10 rounds with Saul Alvarez, right? Again, another big puncher, just like Prescott, just like Kim. Vazquez went the distance with Saul Alvarez. The other guy he lost to, you might know who he is. He is right now the 140-pound champion, Timothy Bradley. And all I can say is the Bradley fight is the only fight on record where Vazquez truly looked outgunned in the fight. Styles make fights. Bradley is, like Vazquez, another elite fighter. Now, Zappavigna fought Ji-hoon Kim after Vazquez did, and of course, in a very dramatic early knockout, he drops Kim twice, looked explosive. Now, all I can say is this. While Zappavigna looks more explosive on film, I'm more impressed by not one-punch knockouts. I'm more impressed by systematic demolitions over several rounds. In other words, when I see a fight like Bernard Hopkins against Kelly Pavlik, where Bernard Hopkins has an edge, and that edge becomes apparent over the course of the fight, I'm more impressed than I am if Hopkins were to catch Kelly Pavlik early in the fight and take him out. What I think you're going to see here is you're going to see a young lion, and Zappavigna's style, he's a knockout puncher, right? His style is to stay far away from you, throw a couple of pawing punches, then he leaps in with dynamite. You know the type of fighter, right? He has never lost professionally. He thinks he's invincible. When he leaps in with a punch, he leaps in, he's all in. If the punch lands, then the opponent's going to go down like 17 of his 25 opponents have already, including Ji-hoon Kim. Well, all I'm saying is this. That might work against most fighters. That's not going to work, in my opinion, against an elite technician like Miguel Vazquez. I'm expecting Vazquez, who is a counterpuncher and who has a deceptively good jab, just like Bernard Hopkins, in particular, younger Bernard Hopkins had a spectacular jab. Same type jab here. I'm expecting Vazquez to literally make Zappavigna look amateurish, right? I'm expecting Zappavigna to find that when he lunges in, Vazquez is not going to be there. Then, before he can get back out, Vazquez will suddenly appear on the scene, hit him with several jabs, then move to the side out of the way of any future attack that Zappavigna can do. Understand, too, there's a height difference here, right? Vazquez is tall. He's 5'10". Zappavigna is only 5'6". Keep that in mind as you break down the video. Zappavigna is not only going to have to lunge, he's going to have to lunge, then he's going to have to go high. And as opponents of guys who fight tall, like Vitaly Klitschko, know, it's very hard to hit a skilled big man who literally knows how to hold his hands high, block shots, roll with punches. And all I can say is, as hard as the unbeaten Zappavigna punches, I cannot say that he punches harder than some of the other guys that Vazquez has fought. I cannot say that Zappavigna punches harder than Breedis Prescott, than Saul Alvarez, than Ji Hoon Kim. So I like Vazquez here. In fact, really what this video is about is to alert the public to the fact that, Vazquez, quite frankly, might be the best at 135. This guy is an elite fighter. He has fought elite competition on the way up. Quite frankly, he keeps getting better and better. And when you look at a guy like this, who doesn't rely on physical gifts, he only relies on, in my opinion, his mental toughness and his outlook, his understanding, his knowledge of the sport, then you're looking at a guy who, like Bernard Hopkins, could have a very long career, right? This guy simply outthinks most of the people he is put in the ring with. And because he's relatively unknown, even though he has one of the major belts at 135, I don't expect better known fighters who are, looking for big paydays to add to their legacy. I don't expect fighters like Juan Manuel Marquez to risk it against this guy. And let me just say, too, because Vazquez is tall, some of the advantages that some other well-known fighters at 135 have over most of their opponents, like Robert Guerrero, he would find out that he doesn't have the length advantage over Vazquez, and then he would find out that he's in with a technician. Vazquez's fights are very interesting to watch because Vazquez, you can tell his opponents by the fourth or fifth round understand they're in the ring with a superior talent. Just look at the Breedis Prescott fight. Now, if Vazquez is so good, people are probably asking themselves, why am I saying hedge the play with Zappavigna by KO? And the reason is simple. It's because of my belief, and you can call me crazy, but it's my belief that counterpunchers have a hard time early in fights figuring out the angles of the punches because they're literally looking at you trying to analyze the punches. So, Juan Manuel Marquez, I thought, had a very difficult time in the very first Juan Diaz fight, where Diaz gets him up on the ropes and starts cuffing him around early in that fight. Of course, once he broke the code of Diaz, then he was dominant. Floyd Mayweather, people may recall, actually got knocked down early. His glove hit the canvas against Zab Judah before he made the adjustments and then dominated the fight going forward. In fact, if you look at the Floyd Mayweather-Ricky Hatton fight, you'll see that early in that fight, Ricky Hatton actually hits Floyd, who literally backs up and bounces off against the ropes. One wonders if Floyd would have been able to have kept his balance had the ropes not been there. Well, Breedis Prescott against Miguel Vazquez actually knocked Vazquez down in the very first round, right? Just like Paul Williams did to Sergio Martinez, another counterpuncher. Well, Vazquez, of course, got up, made a mental note of the angles, as counterpunchers and technicians do, and then he proceeded to dominate that fight. I'm just afraid to fly naked here. I'm just afraid, since he's in with a puncher, that as he's standing there as a mad scientist trying to figure out the angles, that he gets hit with a punch that he doesn't quite recover from. So, as I said, I expect Vazquez to win this fight. I expect him to do it late. The way I'm structuring the bet is Zappavigna by KO straddled against the over. Let me know what you think. Leave your comments for me here on YouTube. I hope you visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. And whether I'm right or wrong, I hope you come back after the fight and give me your analysis. Forget my analysis. That's just one man's analysis. I want to hear your analysis on this fight after it happens. Enjoy the fight. Thanks.